What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to talk about what's happening with Tesla SPY and the overall market. I'm also going to provide you guys with a very important warning for tomorrow. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on invested cash. The offer ends very soon in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, now let's talk about Tesla. So, Tesla was shuffling in the very beginning of the day, but then I did warn you guys that there was a risk of it coming down a little bit lower. We ended up losing 336 as support, which led to our next target all the way down here around this 330 area. Even that didn't hold Tesla up. We went all the way down to about the mid 320s all the way down here before we saw some buyers defend it, and it still looks bearish now. We're actually making lower highs and lower lows. We're down 6%, but it's actually not much downside compared to how much upside we got. Remember, Tesla was getting back-to-back 10% days. It was up almost 40% since the election. So being down 6% is actually very, very minuscule relative to that. With that being said, now I just want to give you guys a warning about this. Tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, November 13th. And just remember that 1 hour before the market opens, we have the CPI data report coming out. This suggests that there's going to be a big move, most likely coming to Tesla and the markets. And if CPI is decent and the market gaps up, we could see another rally and Tesla could still gap up and try to run. If CPI is not too good, or if it's just so and we don't really get much of a reaction, Tesla could still continue this downwards move. So it all depends on CPI at this point. If you're holding anything overnight, just be very, very wary of that. Be very careful. We'll have to see what CPI leads to. But just know that nonetheless, Tesla does remain a little bit more bearish here. We could be dipping closer to 325 again, if not below. And even if we do dip a little bit lower, that does not guarantee anything for tomorrow until we see what happens with our CPI report. So that's what my warning is for everyone. I will talk more about this in my final video of the day, which is coming out in a couple of hours. But until then, I just want to say that just remember this warning. If you're holding any options overnight, be careful, okay? Just be very, very, very careful. For SPY, we had a very interesting move. So we pushed to 599, then we dumped down to 594. That's very close to the level we called out if we had lost the support around 597. Then we got bought back up to almost 599, only to come back down. So very, very crazy price action for the day. We might dip a little bit more going into close, but then whether or not we get a bounce or a rejection depends on CPI. If CPI launches this back up, we could try to push back up towards these highs. If we end up getting a rug pull after CPI, we could be dipping back down to 595 or below. I think we're going to dip a little bit more getting into close. Then we'll see what happens with CPI. So just be very careful. If you're holding anything overnight, just be very, very mindful of that. For ES, same setup. We tried to rebound. We made a lower high rate over here. So this could suggest some downside and move back down to about 6,010. And we'll see what CPI causes. So just be very careful, especially if you're holding any positions. Bitcoin pushed back up to about 90,000. So it saw a bit of a dip back down to 85,000. Very close to what I was predicting. I said 85,000 is likely coming. And then we got a big bounce, a big U-shaped recovery back up to 90,000. So will we continue to push with CPI or not? We'll have to wait and see. But Bitcoin does still look more bullish nonetheless. For stocks like Nvda, we attempted to push back up to 150. We got a big rejection. We were talking about how we do have a tendency of rejecting off 150 to 148 historically. So we came back down to 146, and now we're just shuffling between 146 and 148, which is what Nvidia is going to likely continue to do into close. Now, for now, we'll see what happens, but we're just waiting for the CPI report, so give that a little bit of time to come out, and we'll see how that goes. NQ is just pumping and dumping. We dumped all the way down to our 200 EMA at 21,000. Then we got a rebound to about 21,200. Now we could be returning back down to the 21,150 area. But whether or not this bounces or not, it all depends on CPI. There's a possible head and shoulders, but like I said, it depends on what we get with CPI. So we're going to be very patient with that. The QQQ, very similar head and shoulders like structure as well. We'll see what this leads to. It's just kind of flat right now. Excuse me, guys. We could be dipping closer to where this imbalance back down to about 511.5. We'll see what that leads to if we do get a rejection here. That is a very, very probable technical move. It could happen during the after hours, but then whether or not we get that bounce depends on CPI. Apple, same thing. We are looking a little bit weaker here. We did push up to 225 only to start rejecting. So there's the risk of it coming back down to about the 223s very soon, but there's not really much that's going on. We're still range bound nonetheless. For other factors out there, we have the IWM. The IWM Russell 2000 is dipping. We failed to reclaim 238, so this is a sign that we could be dipping closer to about 236. So just keep that in mind. For coin, we are very, very flat right now. We have this resistance to watch for around 323. And we have support down here around 308. We could just continue to shuffle in this range before we see a dip lower. So just keep that in mind. For Amazon, it's the same thing essentially. We pushed up to about 210, only to start dipping back down to about 207.5. So it could dip a little bit here, but then we'll see what happens with CPI. Meta dipped, it pumped and then dumped. We're very flat right now around the 585 area. It's going to likely continue to shuffle, waiting for a close. Same thing with Microsoft. It dipped and it pumped back up. I did talk about in my earlier video that this had potential to push. That potential was there. Now it might return back down to 422, but it's not really doing much. Google also started to break out, so it did better than what I was expecting. I just thought it was going to shuffle, but it actually broke out here. So this could be indicative of a cup and handle like structure that's about to get a bigger breakout. And this has potential to squeeze even more if we break past 184. If that's the case, we're looking for 186 as a potential target. So the market is doing a good job at holding up. We did see the market dip a bit only to get bought back up. Even Tesla's been dipping. It's a little bit weaker compared to the market, but that's completely normal. After so much upside, that's no surprise. So that being said, Tesla has potential to run even more later on. It might dip a little bit more for the time being, so just be very careful with that. And then we'll see what happens with the CPI report. That's going to be the next major catalyst, at least for the market. Excuse me. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. Please have a great day. I'll be back in a couple of hours to give you one more update for the day. And just know that even if Tesla does dip more, okay, even if there is something that happens, and let's just say CPI does not cause us to bounce, I'm not worried about this. I just think that this could be another potential opportunity to load up on shares or even just dollar cost average because Tesla will run more towards the end of the year and the $400 price target remains. Tesla will eventually get back up there once things start turning. So could Tesla dip more? It's always a possibility. Sure, we could still dip more. If that happens, awesome. But that's going to be an opportunity because Tesla has potential to run, and the potential is not necessarily done quite yet, especially as we've seen a lot more shorts piling in, and those shorts are just continuing to get squeezed. The potential is still there for Tesla nonetheless. All right. So we'll see what happens with Tesla. It's doing a good job at holding up. It's very resilient. And don't worry about the downside. Like I said before, this is very, very minuscule relative to how much upside we got over the past week. So this is very healthy, nothing to worry about. And then we'll see what happens tomorrow. All right. So my final warning is this: if you're holding anything overnight, be careful. If you're holding anything, it could be risky because of CPI. We'll see what that leads to. Until then, I'll see you guys in a couple of hours for another update. Until then, have a great day and peace out.